Wee, don't tell me you're at Mountain Lakes with all of your friends. Wee, don't tell me you're gonna start talking about craft beer again. We're cracking wise on random craft beer news, hanging out with brewers, owners, and maltsters, doing interviews. A wee chose, a wee chose, a wee chose, a wee show. It's a wee chose, a wee chose, a wee chose, a wee show.
From the Brewhouse Stage at Mountain Lakes Brewing Company in downtown Spokane, Washington, this is Wheat, Don't Tell Me, Spokane's craft beer live audience show and podcast. You know, I was just recently at the Oregon coast. People there were accusing me of creeping up on folks on the beach and pulling them into the ocean. I said, that was ridiculous. I've never heard of such a thing. They asked me, you've never heard of the Sneaker Dave? I'm Dave Basaraba, and here is your host, Chris Cindric.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, everybody. Man, do we have an incredible show for you tonight. Believe it or not, we have Rachel and Ross from Friends.
No. Rachel and Joss from Community Pint.
Seriously?
Yeah, sorry. Does that change everything?
No, I mean, I figured that was a little highbrow for us. All right, well, pivot. Yes, Rachel Nalley and Joss Tribble from Community Pint are our special guests for tonight.
Hi there.
And as always, we have Dave Basaraba and Tim Hilton of Mountain Lakes Brewing Company here. Well, guys, what's the latest news with Mountain Lakes Brewing and the Spokane craft beer scene? What's happening?
I don't know if you all heard, but the Inland Northwest Craft Beer Festival was unfortunately canceled for the second time due to COVID numbers. We are currently the reigning champion now because of 2 cancellations, 3 years in a row.
Well, there you go. So 2019, you've held that title since 20. You're kind of like the Patriots of that festival.
I think Wa Beer is just afraid to hold it again.
Exactly.
In case we did brew a beer that Tim created this year that was going to take it all. I really do think so. And the only unfortunate part was that we don't get to do it at Avista, but that means we'll have more of it here in the tap room.
Right, okay, so I was going to ask, so you have all these great beers, and what's the plan now?
Well, we have our pineapple upside down beer, and we think that was going to win. It's good beer. The only problem is we can't keep it in the mug. Get it?
You still have to serve it upright, Tim.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
We have wasted so much beer with him pouring it out.
You started pouring them and then turning them upside down, and...
Yeah, it's not a blizzard.
Oh, it's not... Yeah, right.
We do have a dilemma that we brewed a bunch of beer for the festival, and they're sort of festival beers, meaning they're meant to be had 4 ounces at a time, so we need to be creative and get, sell beers that are kind of unusual.
Right.
But I think that'll be a fun thing.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good news. Well, to start the show off, we like to ask important people about that. We like to ask important people who work in the craft beer industry questions about what they do and how they do it. It's called Not My Beer. Please welcome tonight's Not My Beer guests from Spokane's very own and beloved craft beer bar and bottle shop, Community Pint, Rachel Nalley and Joss Tribble.
Hey there.
Hey, it's good to have you here. Welcome to the show. So when I think about beer couples in Spokane, you're kind of one of the main couples that comes to my mind, and I think a lot of people that are connected to the craft beer industry know about Rachel and Joss. But I think you have a long history together. So tell us a little bit about how and when you met.
When did Tinder start?
Oh, rude. Because it wasn't then.
Because it was before that. He just wanted to mark it.
We actually met in high school. In 2000, I was trying to set him up with my best friend, and it didn't work out for them, but worked out for me, so
Right.
I'm happy.
In high school here in Spokane, where were you going?
Yeah, we went to Gonzaga Prep.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was class of 03, Joss was class of 02.
Okay.
So he was the older boy.
Cool. And so you graduate from Gonzaga Prep. Joss, you're a year older. So you leave first, and then Rachel, so tell us a little bit about what's your progression, or what happens to you after you leave Gonzaga Prep. Where do you go?
Yeah, so we were together at that point for 2 years, and I went to community college here in Spokane for a year, and she was still at Gonzaga Prep. I took off from college because that just didn't work out for me, and got into the automotive industry, where I started working for $1 Rent-A-Car, washing cars, and they gave me a paycheck. I didn't have to pay them to show up, which was very different from school.
Right.
And stayed there for about 4 years running the shop after that, and kind of saw writing on the wall where we didn't pivot very well during a recession. So took off from there, moved on to another facility called Vandervert Automotive, where I wrote service and kept the car thing going. And that's where I still am today.
Right. Nice. Awesome. Very cool. And then, Rachel, you had one more year of school, and then you leave, and what happens?
I did. So I made the choice to stay in Spokane since we were together at the time. Wanted to see my future with this dude right here. So I went to Gonzaga University, studied biology, and was pretty sure that I was going to go to med school. I was going to be a doctor. I had a thing for Dana Scully on the X-Files, so I really thought that I was going to be a forensic pathologist, and that did not turn out. I graduated. I ended up working for PAML, which was the medical lab here in town. I did toxicology confirmation on urine samples. So
Okay.
Anytime you go get drug tested, or for a job, or if you've made a mistake in your life, I probably had to handle that sample. And after a few years of doing that, I realized that was not where I wanted to spend the rest of my life.
I really just want to say thank you for flushing that one sample that long time ago. Thank you.
I'm sure I don't know what you mean. So after realizing that I didn't want to spend the rest of my life staring at other people's urine, I ended up moving into one of my other hobbies at the time, which was being a makeup artist. And I was lucky enough to get hired by MAC Cosmetics to manage the counter here at Nordstrom, and did that for a few years, wanted to see as far as I could go with it. So ended up moving to Seattle with MAC. I was living in Capitol Hill at the time. I lived in West Seattle, Cap Hill in Seattle, and loved Seattle, loved the hustle and bustle, but retail killed my soul. And I was looking for a way out of retail and back to Spokane, which is where I consider my home.
Okay, so then during this time, are you craft beer drinkers? Is this when does craft beer come in? Because I know we're getting closer to you entering the craft beer world, but when did you both start drinking craft beer?
I was a staunch supporter of Silver Bullets.
Oh, yeah.
For quite a while, until someone opened my eyes. Coors Light. Yeah, Coors Light. It was as cold as the Rockies. Their marketing was on point. That was the only thing it had going for it, come to find out. But the craft beer awakening probably started just before the move to Seattle for Rachel. Had a friend come over for a wedding that we were at, and he showed me this app. You guys might have heard of it. It's called Untapped.
Yes, we had discussions last week on it. We love Untapped, everybody, right?
We call it Fun Tapped. It's F Untapped.
Fun tapped.
Well, it turned beer drinking into a game.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Games are fun.
Games are fun.
So then you start looking for all the things you can drink and check in and make sure you have a higher score than your friend. And that was the opening to craft beer for me, and mostly for Rachel too, I think.
Mostly for me too. I was not a huge beer drinker. I thought, again, a lot of my life has been thinking that I was going to go in one direction and then realizing that was not the case. So I thought I was going to be into wine. And I tried really hard to get into wine and left a lot of open bottles that I never finished. And beer ended up being that thing that there was a flavor for whatever day, whatever meal, whatever experience we were having. So I just found that there was a beer pretty much for every occasion, some flavor that I could get into that I could like. And right around that time, I did make that move to Seattle, which was really exciting because there were a lot of craft breweries in Seattle. So every time Joss came to visit me, we would try to find a new one, and that was how we were exploring the city.
Okay.
Was going to different areas, finding a brewery there, or finding a brewery and then going to that area, having never seen it before or known what was there. So it was a really fun way to learn about it. And the more beer I ended up drinking, the more I got interested in it.
Okay, and which leads us then to what was the thing? What happened to make Rachel move into the craft beer world?
But I met Rachel when she was already like a legend of Spokane beer, and she was brewing at Orleson. And
you
Tim
flatter
and I were fans of Orleson and Iron Goat at the time. Those were our two go-to microbreweries in town. And she had a little beer called Orange Delicious that we were just like, holy crap. I mean, it actually sent us in a new direction as brewers together because we were homebrewing and we had never thought about adjuncts really in any way.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Wow.
So then what's the step? You're in Seattle, you're doing makeup, and then
Well, like I
brewing
said,
happens how?
Yeah, I was getting really burnt out on retail and doing that. I still wanted to do something that was creative. I wanted to do something that did use that degree that I paid for and was still paying for at the time. So I
Started making meth.
it-
Oh,
you know,
no, that's chemistry.
That was
that's
chemistry. I was
Yeah.
biology.
My bad, biology.
Biology is not lucrative, man.
that-
I chose poorly.
It would have
So-
had to been shrooms.
There you go, yeah. Which is way easier to make. You just kind of cut them. Yeah.
Throw it out.
So-
But like all good ideas, I was drinking a beer, and I was sitting at a brewery in West Seattle by where I lived, and the brewer was there having a really terrible day. So his yeast wasn't behaving. He couldn't understand what was going wrong with fermentation, and I was interested. So I kept asking him questions about it and trying to figure out what was going on. And he said something about anaerobic fermentation, and I asked him what nutrients he was using, and he looked at me with this expression on his face that I shouldn't have known what he was talking about. And that was sort of the light bulb moment where I was like, wait, I love beer. I like drinking. And apparently this biology degree comes in handy for this thing. And I decided that was the next step I was going to go for. Was, I was still young. I had my degree. I was living in Seattle, which at the time was a hub for craft beer, and in the Inland Northwest, which is still a hub for craft beer. So I knew wherever I went, I could have a job. And I decided I wanted to try and get into brewing.
Okay, so did you fix his problem, and what brewery was that? I'm loving this.
The brewery.
Just by the way, let's talk yeast nutrient for a little bit.
So I I was living in West Seattle, so it was West Seattle Brewing Company.
Oh yeah, right on.
They now have 2 locations. One's on Alki Beach, and one
Yeah.
is at the original location, which is where I was. So
And you heard it here first, folks. She saved the business.
I didn't say that, but I did not say that.
So now you've bought this automotive, Vanderbilt Automotive together, and then Rachel, you've now kind of moved into this idea that you want to become a brewer. So what are the steps you take to journey into that realm?
So living in Seattle, looking for breweries that wanted to hire assistants, everybody wanted either education in brewing or an internship, an experience. And I'm sure anybody who's ever searched for a job knows how it's really hard to get experience if you don't have a job, and you can't get a job without experience in that circle. So there were a lot of unpaid internships at the time, which I could not afford a condo in Seattle and working an unpaid internship. So I decided to look at schooling. And I was lucky enough at the time that Central Washington was just expanding their brewing certificate program, and they introduced a craft brewing degree that year. So I applied for the certificate program to get experience, and the program director called me, said, I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is that we're not accepting you for the certificate program. And I was like, okay, well, what's the good news? Because that sounds really terrible. She was like, well, given that you already have a degree, we want you to be one of the first graduates of the brewing degree program instead. So I was lucky enough to get accepted into that program. All except for one of my college classes transferred. And so I spent a year and a half going to school full-time at Central Washington and got a Bachelor's of Science in Craft Brewing.
Ah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, what didn't transfer was the microbiology class, which
Oh.
was what made me realize I knew enough to be a brewer, but apparently not enough
Yeah,
for
that's
the
funny.
degree.
Yeah,
So-
I would have thought it was urinalysis.
Right.
But I mean, that really comes in
I had
handy.
plenty of
Thank you,
experience
thank
in that
you,
one.
yeah. But that one comes in handy with brewing.
There's a lot of urine.
Yeah.
So, I've been going to Central, and the program asked for any alumni from Central who are working in the brewing industry to come give a talk to our class and talk about what it was like to actually be in the field. And a gentleman by the name of Blaine Sarin was the head brewer for Orlison Brewing at the time in Airway Heights. Came back, gave us a talk about brewing, and we met up afterwards. Anybody that was interested in learning more, we just talked with him, had a couple beers, and he mentioned that he was going to be hiring an assistant brewer, kind of laughing it off, saying, if anybody actually wants to move to Spokane. And I was like, I do, that's me. So at the time, I had been interviewing a bunch of breweries in Spokane, trying to develop a business plan, kind of a market analysis of the brewing industry, also to try and get an idea of if brewing was a feasible career path, if it was something I really could do. So that made me well known in Spokane, I think because I was so persistent that everybody knew who I was, whether or not they wanted to. And it made it so that when he mentioned my name, enough people at least knew who I was that he thought I was a good bet. So I was hired to be the assistant brewer at Orlison Brewing right out of school. So I graduated on a Saturday and went to work on Monday.
Wow. That's awesome.
I would have negotiated a week off, but
I
it's
wasn't
fine.
that smart, man. Thanks for rubbing
Can
it
I
in.
just enjoy
It's a
this?
sales problem.
It's a sa-
So now you come back, you're in Spokane.
So I came back in Spokane. I was working for Orlison. I started there right when we started developing our ale lineup. So previous to that year, we had been a lager-only brewery, and we wanted to start doing ales. So I learned how to brew lagers on a German-style system, and then I learned how to brew ales. Around that time, Blaine decided he actually didn't want to be in brewing anymore and left, and Orlison decided to promote me. So I had been in my position as an assistant brewer for 6 months, and then I became the head brewer at Orlison while we were contract brewing for No Lie. So I was brewing Born and Raised, Big Juicy, and all of the Orlison lineup, and developing the ale program.
Did you ever brew anything pretty magical as an ale while you were at Orlison?
Well, everybody likes to talk about Orangelicious.
I
which
know,
was
and I know that's not. Oh yeah,
or Snowplow.
Yeah.
So we brewed a chocolate stout that was really, really good. We also brewed an orange creamsicle inspired ale. The one I'm most proud of was a brown ale that I helped develop that we entered and won a gold medal at the Great American Beer Festival.
Woo!
Right. And that was called, what was that?
Boulder Garden Brown.
Boulder
It's
Garden
an
Brown.
English-style brown ale, and it placed gold at the Washington Beer Awards and then at the GABF that year.
That's awesome.
Oh, I mean,
Wow.
just
That
showing
sounds
off.
really impressive, but it's no Lester Cup.
I mean, it's
Right.
no 3-year reigning champion of
No.
the Avista.
That's right.
No,
That's
it's-
right. And
not.
4 years if that bomb scare tactic works.
Yeah. So then you're Orlison, and then No Lie's making the shift in, and then you've gone some other places too. Tell us a little bit about that
So
progression.
unlike Joss, who found what he wanted to do and stuck with it, I am immensely qualified a little bit in a lot of fields. But for brewing, I started off at Orlison, worked with No Lie, and then Orlison actually decided to close down. The contract brewing for No Lie was doing really well, and they wanted to devote that facility to only brewing for No Lie. At that point, I'd been in the industry for about 1.5 years, 2 years, and realized that kind of like working at a lab, I didn't like being a production brewer. I didn't want to brew the same things. I didn't want to do the same processes every single day. And around that time, I was lucky enough that both Travis Toseth of TT's Old Iron and Greg and Heather Brandt, along with Sheila from Iron Goat, approached me. Travis was in the process of opening up TT's, and Iron Goat was looking for someone to develop their brewing lab program and do cellar work for them. So I signed on with Iron Goat, built up a program to do some analysis on yeast health and some of their wild fermentation studies, and then also cleaned kegs and washed tanks and did a lot of grunt work for a while. And then TT's was opening, and I had stayed in contact with Travis throughout my whole time at Iron Goat, and Iron Goat was very, very gracious in allowing me to stay as long as I needed to, and when the time came, I transitioned out and helped Travis open up TT's Old Iron out in the Valley. So
Nice.
I built up his program and have developed all of the beers on tap currently there.
Oh, nice. It's awesome. And you are the, what's your position title there?
I am the head brewer.
Head brewer at TT's.
At TT's
And
Old
so
Iron.
what's the, well, yeah. And are currently still and staying.
Yes.
Right? Even
Yeah.
in this next, even with the purchase of Community Pint, which we'll get into.
I feel like we probably, I finally hit my stride. This is the one thing that I don't see myself trying to find an exit out of is the brewing industry and brewing. I love what I do, and because I've had the experience in production brewing, I'm able to streamline my processes at a smaller brew pub. So I
Right.
don't have to work there 40 hours a week, which freed up some time for me to take on another challenge.
Right, nice. And now the two of you are looking at a number, I don't know when the purchase happened, but you move into this idea of purchasing Community Pint. How did that come about? You already own one business together, and now you come about to purchasing Community Pint. How does that go?
Well, it started out with us deciding that, I had my business. It was my industry. And, not that we weren't partners in it, but it was focused on my skill set. So we were looking for another opportunity that would focus on Rachel's skill set. And it did not start out necessarily as being Community Pint, but we were looking at some sort of beer venture that would be something that she could manage and run and just use her immense set of skills to make successful. So we started looking for some property to maybe do something, and that led to a conversation.
So we were looking for something that could maybe be we like the idea of, maybe a 2 to 3 barrel system, a small, maybe 50-person capacity, something actually really similar to Mountain Lakes.
So you want to buy Mountain Lakes?
You
Sold.
You should talk to Tim.
Okay, it's done.
$75.
You guys are 3 months too late.
Okay. Oh, shit.
So
$75 and we get to drink for free.
I don't want to take that deal.
I'm
I've
just-
seen you put down a beer.
Bankrupt in 90 days.
We still don't want to have to wear pants here. And deal.
They make us.
So we were looking at different properties and trying to find something that seemed like a really good fit. We weren't really sure what we were going for, but I love brewing. I knew that I could handle another project on top of TT's Old Iron. And I was actually sitting at Community Pint talking to a leasing agent on the phone, and I was the only person in Community Pint at the time. And TJ was trying really hard not to eavesdrop, but it was difficult given that I was the only one there. Ed kind of asked what we were looking for, and I said, we're thinking about expanding. We'd like to do something beer related. We don't really know what yet. And 24 hours later, I got a text message from him that said he had talked to Sarah, his wife. He was opening up Garland Beer Works and didn't want to focus on Community Pint anymore. Would Joss and I be interested in buying it? And that was not what we anticipated. It wasn't what we had planned, but it also seemed like the kind of opportunity you don't turn down.
Right. And so you purchased Community Pint. Well, how's it going?
It's great. I mean, I feel like that was a really awkward pause, but it was really good.
What she means, it would be fantastic if we had a road in front of the building.
Right.
Yeah.
So
They're working on that. They're going to put a street there, they said.
so for
It's going to be they're going to have cars in both directions.
people that might not or might be listening, that right now where Community Pint is located, it's on Sprague. They've dug up it's been probably now a year.
It started in April 2021.
Okay.
And they are doing a full rejuvenation of the area. So they're creating it from, it was a 5-lane street and they're making it 3 lanes. So they're widening the sidewalks, they're adding more pedestrian space, planters, better light fixtures. So the area is going to be really beautiful. But we've definitely been working in the apocalypse for the past 6 months.
Oh, yeah, but it could have happened at a better time because COVID has been the apocalypse for everyone anyway.
Right.
So, like, on the bright side, let me tell you, as a business owner, like, this is really going to be good for you guys. It's going to make it more walkable over there.
So I have a question about the name Community Pint. So, when I was in college, we, living with roommates, you have your refrigerator, you have your community milk, there's community bread. It's like you can share it. I don't want to share a freaking pint. Like, I think you guys should call it like community keg or something, right?
So now, so things are going well at Community Pint. I mean, you've got the challenge of the construction and everything, but like we've seen with Monroe development, that was pretty amazing for all those industries there, and Monroe now looks beautiful. So what are your visions? Like, how will Community Pint stay? I mean, it's kind of cool, too. You've kept the names. Not only Community Pint, but also Vandervert Automotive, right? It didn't become Joss and Rachel Automotive. So,
Well, no, you have to respect the status that a business already has in the community and the reputation, and assuming that we're going to keep that reputation and status up, of course you keep the name. And you actually pay for the name when you buy a business.
Yeah.
A lot, sometimes.
right.
But there's no reason to change something that's already good and something that's popular. And both of these places are businesses that we went to as customers before we were involved with them. Either way, the shop, I had a rear differential rebuilt there on my 92 Firebird 4 years before I ever worked there. And as Community Pint goes, we were regulars. We were there every Wednesday for trivia and probably too many other days during the week. But
He's not wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
So
might as well buy it. Yeah, might as well buy it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to be there anyway, let's make some money.
It seemed like the right financial decision.
Turns out it's a tax write-off now to drink there.
Yeah.
How much do you think we could get for our name, Dave?
At least $1.
Plans for Community Pint. What are we looking at? Because we were talking earlier about you have a unique property line that presents some challenges, but also some opportunities. You're going to have an expanded sidewalk. What will Community Pint look like within the next couple of months of your ownership?
So our big plan is to really embrace the outdoor space that we have. The property there is really interesting. So it actually goes one full city block back. It's very, very narrow, but we have the entire property all the way back from Sprague to First. That property is built into a hillside. Like much of Spokane, it's basalt. So there's not a lot we can do in terms of leveling it or dropping it down, doing anything like that.
Sweet deck.
Yeah, but it's patio season a lot of the time in Spokane,
And with COVID, it's patio season all year round.
we are building. We're trying to be pandemic proof. We were lucky enough to see how people were able to adapt during this past year and a half, and so being able to go into it and make changes to continue the business and still be a place where people can go even when there is difficulties with being inside is something that's really important to us. So we're going to look into building a staircase that goes from inside up into the back area. We're going to have a large patio outdoor space. Right now, you're welcome to bring any outside food in. So we may look at creating like a food truck gathering. So because of the wider sidewalks, there'll be a little bit more space out front. So rotating food trucks, rotating people bringing like catering foods in is something that we really want. We want to stay a place for the community where people can gather.
That's great.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I think on that, you then have one of your focuses. You're a bottle shop. You have beers on pint or on tap. You have growlers to go, but you also have a pretty significant product selection. Not only beers, but you have other spirits as well, including seltzers and so on. So how is that? That's kind of a new area, right? Because you're not just brewing, you're also purchasing. So what's the learning curve there, and how do you go about choosing product?
Well, that's definitely something that's new for both of us, dealing with distributors on the purchasing side and finding out what's available and what people want and making sure we have enough of it. And it's been a bit of a challenge for the last couple months here. But one thing that makes Community Pint special, and always has, is that we travel to get beer. We don't just let it come to us. So there's a lot of places that will sit there and buy beer and get it from your distributor that delivers it to you, and it's nice and easy and quick, and it's great. There's a lot of good options. I'm not discounting our distributors one bit, but there are just breweries that people want that you can't get unless you drive there. So TJ has always done the Portland trips and Missoula and Bozeman for all kinds of different stuff, and we are not stopping that. We are absolutely continuing that. In fact, we're going on Sunday to Portland and hitting about 8 different places to pick up beer and
pick up some of that Widmer Brothers stuff.
Yeah, they have a Heffy.
We can drop it right off at your house.
Thanks.
If you'd like.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, they have a Hefeweizen that I tell you it's gonna be big.
So we like to look at beers that we drink or beers that we look for. So we're kind of bringing that same spirit of exploration that we had when I was living in Seattle, and we would go to different breweries and check them out and see what offerings are. And we're trying to make that a little bit more accessible in Spokane. So instead of having to go to Portland or having to go to Seattle, we want everybody to be able to come to Community Pint and get those beers here.
Here.
And the other part of it, too, is making sure that we have something for everyone. So we're really working on expanding our ciders and our seltzers and non-alcohol options that were never there before, besides a glass of water. And that's no fun for anyone in your group that happens to not be drinking at the time. So we've brought in hop teas and hopefully some hop waters coming soon.
And we brought in Athletic Brewing Company is a brewery that does only non-alcoholic beer. They have IPAs, hazy IPAs, blondes, stouts. So we're bringing in some options like that too, just so if you are not drinking for the week, the month, or whenever, you can still come with your friends. You can still enjoy the atmosphere, and you're not left out of trying new things and new flavors.
Woo. Oh, that's awesome. Well, Rachel and Joss, it has been a true pleasure talking with you and learning your story and the exciting things happening at Community Pint. Thank you so much for joining us on Not My Beer. That wraps up the first part of our show. We'll now take a break and be back in a few with Joss, Rachel, Tim, and Dave, and an audience contestant for a little game we call Small Beer. Woo!
Welcome back to the Brewhouse Stage at Mountain Lakes Brewing Company in downtown Spokane, Washington. This is Wheat, Don't Tell Me, Spokane's craft beer, live audience, show, and podcast. And now, as usual, here's your host, Chris Cindric.
Thank you, Dave. And now a game that tests your beer brain. It's called Small Beer. We've asked an audience member to step up to the challenge. Hello and welcome. Tell us your name and a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks for having me. My name is Matthew, and I'm a local Spokane resident, beer enthusiast to the region, coffee, gardener, guru. So, yeah, just enjoying everything that Spokane's got to offer.
All right. So, beer enthusiast, do you have kind of regular establishments that you visit in Spokane in the craft beer scene?
Yes, I do. I kind of like to spread the love to every place and go around and hit up every establishment basically within the 509 area.
Okay, great. That's great. Well, welcome to the show, Matthew. Here's what we're going to do at this point in the show. Dave is going to read 3 beer-related trivia questions. If you can correctly answer just 2 of the 3 beer trivia questions, you will be a winner. You'll win free beer and a pint glass. Are you ready to play?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready. Here we go.
So, Matthew, in recognition of fall, your trivia questions tonight deal with Oktoberfest beers and traditions. Here is your first question.
At the real Oktoberfest in Munich, only 6 local breweries are able to serve on the premises. Those breweries include Paulaner, Spaten, Hocker Shore, Augustinerbrau, and Lowenbrau. What is the brewery that we're missing? Do you want training wheels?
Big Munich Brewery.
Do you want training wheels? I'll give you three
I
options.
thought the other 5 were the big ones that I would see at Huckleberry's all the time.
That's
Now,
true.
I'll give you a hint.
Yeah.
It's German.
Oh, thanks, Tim. Tim is always helpful.
And specifically
They-
Munich.
And they brew beer.
Munich Brewery.
Okay, I'll give you training wheels. Here it is. Is it Mickelsbrau, Bitburger, or Hofbrau?
Let's see. Hofbrau.
See?
That is correct. Yes, the rules of Oktoberfest stipulate that during the festival, only beer products from breweries in Munich may be served. Thank goodness for local Oktoberfest and craft breweries that are now serving excellent German-style beers. Prost.
Prost.
Yeah.
Prost. Yeah.
So here is your second question.
Most people know that the traditional clothing for men to wear for Oktoberfest is, of course, the lederhosen. But what is the traditional clothing that women wear called? You can ask for training wheels. It's okay, but you have to ask for it.
Sure, I'll ask for training wheels.
All right, okay. So you have 3 choices. Is it a Sarafan, a Klederdracht, or a Dirndl?
I'm going to go with that last one again.
It's correct. Yes, you are. All right, here's your third question.
What did the first Oktoberfest celebrate, Matthew?
The harvest.
I know, that's what everyone thinks.
What did you think?
That's what everyone thinks.
Give them training wheels, though.
Was it a wedding, a Bavarian Independence Day, or the harvest? Well, we already told you it wasn't the harvest.
Okay. So, the wedding.
It
Yes,
was.
it
That's
was the
correct.
wedding.
Yeah, very good. Woo! Yeah! Who doesn't love a good wedding, especially one that lasted for 5 days, ended with a horse race, and has continued to cause celebration for over 200 years? Thanks, Prince Ludwig and Princess Teresa. Yeah.
You know what's really crazy is so I got married on October 12th because that was the last outdoor wedding that McMenamins Edgefield would allow. And then 2 or 3 years later, my wife and I are flying to celebrate our anniversary, and she reads in Alaska Airlines magazine that the original Oktoberfest started on October 12th, 204 years prior.
Wow.
Man.
That's kind of coincidence that Oktoberfest was after a wedding that was in October. That's like a chance of 1 in 12 there.
I know, right? It was.
But, I mean, that's why we haven't pulled the trigger on getting married yet. That's a lot to compete with.
It is,
Serious,
right?
yeah.
Too much
Yeah.
pressure.
I used it as an excuse for why the brewery was a good idea. I was like,
That's
"Look,
weird.
it was written in the stars."
That's weird because at the break, Joss said it was fear of commitment. It was weird.
And 5 days, too, of paying for
Tomato,
a wedding.
tomato.
Some conversations are not meant
Oh,
to be
sorry,
shared.
Joss.
But I would say that maybe the two of you are kind of like Prince Ludwig and Princess Teresa, and you could set the precedent if you did get married for maybe a 6-day wedding with a horse race.
What month
that maybe
needs a really
for
big
200
celebration?
years.
What month needs a really big celebration?
I think February because that's when the beer sales are down.
Yeah.
So
it's our duty.
It's your duty.
Febfest.
Febfest.
Yeah, Febfest, you know what I mean?
There's an R in there though. It's Febfest.
I think we might have to workshop that name.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll figure it out tonight. Nobody leaves until we figure out how they're going to get married, when, and how long it's going to last.
Right.
The marriage or the wedding?
Hey, Dave, how did Matthew do on our quiz?
Well, with training wheels, he got 3 out of 3, and in our world, that's a win.
That's a win. Matthew, thank you so much for playing. We'll now take a break and be back in a few with Rachel, Joss, Tim, and Dave, and a little game we call Brewers on Tap.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Matthew. Enjoy your Pint. Welcome back to the Brewhouse Stage at Mountain Lakes Brewing Company in downtown Spokane, Washington. This is Wheat, Don't Tell Me, Spokane's craft beer live audience show and podcast with your host, Chris Cindric.
All right, now for a game we call Brewers on Tap. Throughout the night, our audience members have had the chance to write down a question for one, a few, or all of the panelists. We've chosen a smackerel of them to ask our panel tonight to tap into some of that brewer and owner knowledge. Let's get started, shall we? So here we go. Here is a do you have a favorite hops? Favorite hops out there?
Fuggles.
For pure, yeah.
That's oddly
No,
self-serving.
hold on. Fuggles. See? The community has spoken.
I don't have a favorite hop. I do know there's a few that I like that I look for, but I would say the one that I always want to drink or the one I really want to brew with is any of the HBC or experimental hops. So a lot of the growers in Yakima will partner with breweries and we'll have them brew test batches with new hops that are coming out of the fields to see how they perform. And that's kind of a dream for my scientific mind.
Right. That would be cool. All right.
Yeah.
And then you give, based upon those beers, you're giving them feedback and...
So you're giving them feedback on how it responds in different stages of the brew. So if it's better for like a dry hop edition or a whirlpool edition, or if you want to really boil the heck out of that and get all the bitterness out of it, and what different notes you get at different stages.
Okay.
Nerd. I can't even get mad at that. It's true.
No, it's, embrace it.
What are the keys to success of being a couple and owning two businesses together? I guess this could go for both of you because Tim and Dave, you're kind of a couple. One business, but, same thing.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah, what are the keys to success of being a couple and owning two businesses together?
Ours is not living in the same house. But how's that go for you guys?
Right, and it's seeing other people, I think. That keeps it a little more spicy for us.
An open relationship, yeah.
We can go out to other breweries anytime, and we have an agreement, an open brewery visit agreement, I think.
Yeah.
Open drinking.
Yeah, open drinking
agreement.
policy, yeah.
It's just awkward when we see Tim, though. It's like, where's Dave at? Where's he at tonight?
Yeah. And then Rachel texts me. She's like, hey, Tim's out enjoying himself, drinking someone else's beer.
We made
Tim's at Community Pint again, all alone.
I don't know if there's a secret to it. We definitely just do the best we can. Joss is in charge of Vandervert, and I'm in charge of Community Pint, so I think that helps, is that I don't question him on anything he does there, and I pretty much get free reign with Community Pint.
That means I shut up very quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
Also,
I think that's just wise being a male.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, any big disagreements we do have, you always have them over a couple beers, and then if it gets too heated, you don't remember it the next day.
So this is from someone chasing those whales out there. What's the rarest beer at Community Pint right now?
Rarest as in the nastiest smell?
I
or-
think the hardest to find. Like, what's the most... Like, what's the Moby Dick out there that you've got that people might be seeking if they're a beer drinker?
We do have some good beers in the cellar that we're sitting on. We have a vertical of the barrel-aged Dark Star from 2015 until 2021.
Wow.
In
And that's
kegs.
so from 2015 to 21.
Yeah, so we've got one keg of
In
each.
kegs.
Yeah. So there's some stuff that we're waiting until the road is finished so that we can celebrate properly.
Wow. Okay.
Only a legend like Rachel could pull that off. Like, where did you get this? Don't ask questions.
Ask questions.
Well, we can't take all the credit. We did purchase a fairly extensive cellar
Oh.
that TJ has been working on for a number of years.
Oh.
So we've got 34 cellar kegs that will be released at indeterminate times.
So
Wow.
it came with the purchase. They were
Yeah,
there.
came with the
Nice.
purchase.
Very good. And then this person's wondering, do you have any Pliny the Elder?
We don't,
Yeah.
only because they don't distribute,
Yeah.
and we haven't made it to Russian River to coincide with a launch. Anything like that isn't something we rule out ever getting. It's just a matter of opportunity and timing. So, kind of like the secret to our relationship.
Oh. It comes full circle.
Yeah. The
And now I
honesty.
have answered the question
Yes.
that you initially asked.
Here's a question for Rachel. As a biologist, what is the hardest beer to brew? Is there a hardest beer?
The hardest beer for me to brew is actually a hazy IPA. I have worked on
Because
it.
it hurts your soul.
No, because I love them and I can't do it.
Okay. Oh.
I have worked really hard on it. So there's a lot of science that goes into it with biotransformation of hops. So you have to add hops at a certain time in fermentation in order for some of they're called polyphenols, but it's compounds in the hop that react with the yeast. And so you have to have yeast at a certain stage in their fermentation so that you have enough of them and that they are right balanced between aerobic and anaerobic fermentation to then take advantage of these compounds in the hops. And my favorite beer that I've brewed was one that didn't turn out at all because I know exactly why it didn't turn out, and it was because I added the hops. I added the dry hops too soon. And learning that has been really fun, but I would say that's the biggest challenge for me.
The hazy. Nice.
Now, you added the hops too soon? Like, how early in fermentation are we talking?
So ideally for
I know. I
ideally
understand.
for peak biotransformation, you want to add hops in the first 24 hours of active fermentation. So you want it to get past the lag phase.
Yep.
So all of the yeast have fully multiplied and they are just going to town on all of the available sugars, but you need it to be the most active fermentation that you'll ever have. And so I have dry hopped it at 24 hours, at 30 hours, at 20 hours, and 24 to 28 is the sweet spot.
Yeah, that's kind of we did it not scientifically. We just were like, oh, that one didn't quite.
Right.
So
And
the next one we'll move it back a little bit.
I think that's the biggest challenge for me is that I feel like I should know why these things happen and why they don't. And so when something doesn't turn out,
I rely on you for knowing.
you know,
So,
also there's that.
yeah, I mean, it's a real thing in Spokane. Like, oh, are you having trouble with something? Call Rachel.
Here's one. Rachel, you had mentioned earlier cellar work. What is exactly cellar work?
That's where you try and convince people to buy. Oh no, that's selling.
That's selling, and we've already determined I'm not that good at that.
What you are.
So cellar work in a brewery, basically, you have brewers and not brewers. And cellar work is anything cold side. So it's things that are done after the brew is done. So once you've boiled the wort, once everything's transferred into the fermenter and you're chilling it. So fermentation management, yeast management, cleaning, kegging, packaging, all of that falls under cellar work. So it's a lot of times people say it's grunt work, and I think it's a really underappreciated part of brewing, only because I can brew the best beer possible, but if whoever is helping me out with cellar work has poor sanitation or poor practices, then it doesn't matter how good a beer is.
So would you say the guy who cleans the kettles and the tanks is probably the most valuable player?
I mean, probably.
I mean, so the recipes are nice, Tim. The recipes are real nice. That's
Wow.
great.
Get back in the cellar, Dave.
So, here's a question. The craziest beer you've ever drank or brewed? I guess this goes to anybody. The craziest beer you've ever drank or brewed?
Craziest beer I ever brewed was what's called a Pombi beer. It's made from this wild yeast in Africa, and it's made with millet and banana. And I brewed it when I was working at a homebrew shop, and Charlie Parpazian, who actually visited our homebrew shop, and I gave him some of it, and he drank it, and I said, "How do you like it?" And he said, "It's fucking awful." And I said, "Oh," and he goes, "But authentic." So I was like, all right.
he meant it
So
in a good way.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, this is awesome. I'll never drink this again, but I
Yeah.
would never drink any Pombies.
it's authentic.
Authentic.
Pombi.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Never heard
yeah,
of it.
It's interesting. Yeah. Millet and banana. So.
Anyone else?
Probably the weirdest or most strange, most unique beer I've ever brewed was a contest out at Genus where called Will It Brew.
Oh my gosh. Did they give you like a motorcycle tire and a telephone?
I had dark chocolate,
Oh, that's good. That's good.
gummy bears,
You can work with you can work with both of those.
2 different kinds of hot peppers, and dried crickets.
Whoa.
Okay.
And I didn't know any of that until I showed up for the brew day.
Crickets
So-
have sort of a metallic finish.
You know, if you put them in under the grain, it kind of acts like rice holes.
Oh, there you go.
Much
Oh, it's a
different.
filter.
The dried
is that what
crickets
you
are
did? Yeah.
much different than fresh crickets. Fresh crickets you only
The
do
fresh
once a
crickets-
year. They're pretty good.
The fresh crickets are hard to get into the mash tun.
They really are. It's like herding
Yeah.
cats or crickets.
I brewed a dark saison and conditioned it on crickets and gummy bears.
Oh my
and
gosh.
And how did it turn out?
Traditional.
Probably really similar to the banana beer.
It actually was not bad. It really was not. And
they will be
that is the
Ubering
weirdest
home
beer
together.
I ever had.
There you go. So, weirdest beer you ever had was the cricket saison. Now we're gonna have to put a little label. No crickets were harmed in the recording.
Yeah, they were already dead when we put them in the mash.
They died. They died. Painfully.
All right, and
In a
so
boil.
that was Genus, which does the, as you said, it was the Will It Brew,
Yeah.
where they give you a bunch of select ingredients. and
Yeah,
then you
so
have
they,
to-
they pit 2 brewers head to head and give them no information as to what they're going into until they get there.
Which is why Tim and I have declined doing it.
It would
Oh, come on, you can do it.
be brave, guys.
No, we
be
can't.
brave.
Well, folks, it's closing time. Last week, we had a little fun with the popular beer app Untapped that allows patrons to rate beers, take pictures, and share comments. Maybe you've used it tonight or as you listen to the podcast to rate the beer you're drinking. Well, here at Wheat Don't Tell Me, we decided to get together with a few brewers and to create a new app called Patronize. It's an app that allows brewers to rate their patrons. Be prepared for such comments as... Be prepared for such comments as, hey, preppy guy in the corner, ordered 3 separate flights and spent all night sipping tasters and taking notes and rating beers low on Untapped. Didn't give a tip, 2.25 stars. Hey, loud woman at the bar, says she hates beer but loves breweries. Drank our Pog Hard Seltzer all night. Said we should make more seltzers and less beer. Screw you, lady, 1.25 stars. Hey, obnoxious homebrewer, bragging about the Kolsch you just brewed to your friends and how it could easily be the most popular beer in the brewery if it was on tap. Go fuck yourself, 0.5 stars. Yes, patrons, brewers have their eyes on you now, and a new format gives them the opportunity to give you feedback based upon their observations while you visit their brewery with Patronize. Enjoy.
Oh, I love that. I love your spelling of it. Patron eyes.
Eyes, there you go.
EYES. Oh my gosh, Chris, you've come up with so many great ideas.
Is this on Kickstarter?
Wait, it might be. I just need that app developer and we'll be good.
I know a guy.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show for tonight. Thank you. Thanks to our special guests, Rachel Nalley and Joss Tribble of Community Pint. And thanks to Dave Basaraba and Tim Helton of Mountain Lakes Brewing Company. Thanks to our wonderful server, Brian, and thanks to all of you for being here. I am Chris Cindric. Good night, and joy be to you all.
Drink up.